Warning, this video contains spoilers for Star Trek Discovery Season 1 and Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Hey everybody, Kowalski here, checking in with another one of our hashtag Star Trek Discovery discussions videos. Today we are going to be doing my review episode of the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery. A little bit differently, we're not going to do my standard slideshow with videos approach, and then I do a theories video after. Today I'm just going to lump it all back together again, because really this episode was amazing, and I think most of you want to really get into the meat and potatoes, which is what I think about how they tied up the end of this episode and leading us into the future of Season 3 of Discovery and the future of Star Trek as a whole at this point. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so there were only a few things in this episode that I really didn't like. Most of this episode was phenomenal, so I'm only going to hit the things I didn't like and then the things that really stood out as awesome. But overall, my feelings is if I had to rate this on a 10 scale, this would be close to a 9.5 for me, or maybe even a 9.7. This was a very, very good episode. So the only two things that bothered me was some of the dialogue choices, like when Lieutenant Nan said, yum, yum.
Yum, yum.
Gross. It's so nasty. And the other thing was the Admirals Death sequence, where she had to manually pull the release lever from the inside of the door and then stand there and let the torpedo blow up in her face. It was kind of dumb. It's something that they could have, used like a belt to loop around the handle and pull it from the elevator. Or they could have just as easily done a site-to-site transport and beamed her away out of that room. Or they could have tried to beam the torpedo off the ship, or done a few different things that Star Trek has done in the past to resolve similar issues where things need to get off the ship quickly or get people out of a situation quickly, even internally on the ship. And just to clarify, because I know some of you guys might say this is, well, wouldn't they have to drop their shields? Well, no, internally of the ship, it's all with inside there, which is why it's called the site-to-site. It would have just beamed her out of there and put her onto a transporter pad. And yes, they do have this technology because we did see it demonstrated previously in an episode of Discovery. So we know that they have the availability for there, but they didn't really use it. They may have cut a sequence where they may have asked that question and they said, oh, the transporters aren't working. But it wasn't in the final episode. I didn't see them say that. So she kind of just stood there and took that blast to the face for what I think is no reason. But ultimately, it was a well-acted scene, a well-scripted scene. But I felt like the plot point of her dying there was kind of weak. Other than that, everything else was really great. The top things for me that really just hit home were, number one, the space battles. This was probably, and I know I'm going to get flamed for saying this, the best space battle depicted in a Star Trek episode. And even in the films, to be perfectly honest. This showed how long of a process was for an hour-long battle, the different things that can take place. And it really, I don't want to say it drug it out, but it really paced it perfectly to where you feel the ships getting sufficient damage, you feel the drones getting sufficient damage, you see plenty of hero shots of the ships firing phasers, you see different parts of the ship getting damaged internally and people being hurt by it. I love the sequences inside of sickbay. Yeah, we have the emotional stuff with Hugh and Stamets and their reconnection, which what we kind of all expected to have happen, but that was really well done still. But the fact that we went in there, we were seeing the triage happen, and there was blood, and people were really dying. You got to really see the impact of what was happening from this battle. And then the different things, like the doors aren't working, and people had to repair things manually on the inside and do different things. It wasn't just all mishmash of buttons or things happening off screen. It was a lot of hard work happening on screen, and it was just really well done. I thought it was really, really well done. The space battles were phenomenal, in my opinion. The next thing that I really enjoyed was the Klingons. And yeah, I know a lot of people are going to say, the Klingons, how could you? Yeah, the Klingons were great. I loved the Cleave ship. I actually thought it was kind of dumb when we saw it in Season 1. It was just this giant ship that, just crashes into other ones. It's kind of stupid, but we don't think we really understood the scope and scale of this ship. When it arrives at this battle, this thing is massive, and it kind of outweighs how dumb it is when it's just a giant battering ram, but it's really, really massive, and it clearly has other weaponry aboard it, and this thing is huge, probably one of the biggest Klingon ships we've seen so far on screen. I'll have to rely on Trek Yards to give us the accurate, dimensions on that thing, but it is massive, and it does a nasty job. And all of L'Rell sequences inside of the bridge, which also looks really Klingon, by the way. It's a really well done bridge. I love the way it looked. All of her sequences, when she said, today is a good day today, I got chills. I thought it was great. The acting was great there. And then, of course, the D7s roll in, and they're boom, 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 firing everywhere. I thought it was really well done. Again, a beautiful setup for the battle sequences there for both the Federation and the Enterprise. I thought it was great. The next thing that I really enjoyed was the dialogue between Spock and Michael, especially when they were on the hull of that ship and they were talking back and forth. They were really troubleshooting the issue of the time suit. They were really emotionally connecting. They were really sharing themselves with each other. And then the end sequence, when basically Michael had to say goodbye to Spock, was super impactful. And you could really feel the emotions in it. And when she said little brother, I know some people who don't like Michael Burnham are going to get upset that Spock clearly is relying a lot on his adopted sister, and the fact that he said, you know, you are my rock, you are my balance, and without you, I don't know if I can find it. And then she says, listen, little brother, you will be able to find it with or without me because it was always in you. People are going to get upset about that because they think Spock is like this hero character that's, hey, he has no problems, you know, but I thought it was really emotional. I thought it was really impactful, and I like the fact that they really established that she is his older sister and she would provide him with that advice because she is his older sibling, and they do connect in a lot of good ways on that level. And I thought that scene was beautifully acted. I thought the sequence where they showed them touching hands doing the live long and prosper sign on the hangar before they took off, I thought that was really great. And then they juxtaposed that later on where they played back his memory of them doing that as children, where he was showing her how to do it. I thought that was really emotionally impactful. I thought that was really great. The other thing that I really liked was all of the characters. Everyone was doing fantastic, from Leland to doing Georgiou's jokes to doing Reno's jokes with everybody. Everything was great. I loved Hugh's emotionality when Stamets gets pulled in. I loved all of Pike's sequences. Number one, she did a fantastic job. Everybody was doing such a phenomenal job with their acting, and the scripts made so much sense. Again, there was only a few moments where it was like, that line is kind of dumb. But overall, this episode was fantastically acted and well scripted, and all of it made perfect sense. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the sequence of Michael Burnham utilizing the wormholes. It reminded me a lot of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it was just really like old school retro sci-fi in a lot of ways. And I thought it was really well done. I thought it looked really great visually. I know the sparks flying on her was kind of like a cheapy effect of somebody just spraying her with sparks, but it just worked for me. Like, I really liked how like the image just flattened and the hole was there and you could see how she went through it, and I just loved her going through it. It was just really well done. I love the retro sci-fi feel to it. I thought it was really, really well done. Okay, so now let's get into explaining a few things that some people might not be aware of or maybe confused on, and I want to go ahead and share my interpretation of what was going on with the signals and what happened at the end of the episode, tying a bow up with the canon. So let's talk about the signals first. For the signals, it seems as though that the entire season 2 of Discovery was one giant loop after another, and that they were in I think Michael called it like an opened loop of time, where everything up to that point, she had been there at the battle with Leland and with the Enterprise and with the Discovery, and she'd seen them get killed in hand-to-hand combat, death, on the bridge. That's what she saw from the time crystal. I think that was the first initial loop. And then they created the time suit, and she went back the first time to try to get Reno, and then she was there, and then some things worked, and then some things different. And then she continued to go back to try to let the Discovery do different things to basically create the whole season and build it up so that they had sufficient pieces of their puzzle to defeat Section 31, Leland's fleet, Control AI, to defeat them in that battle and get Michael Burnham and the Discovery into the wormhole. She went back in time and did different little pieces to make sure it all happened. So it's basically just one large loop, essentially, which is she knows she has to go get Reno. She knows she has to get the time crystal on Boreth. She knows she has to save Kaminar. She knows that they have to show where Terrelysium is so that they know, Discovery knows where to go once they get to the future. She knows all of these things. So from the battle moment is when she does all of the jumps. And then when she gets there, because now all of those things have happened, because in that moment when she's standing there, she hasn't actually done it yet, because it's still like the two timelines actually meet up at that point where she's gone back in time to cause the red bursts and where they are at the actual fight. So Spock says, well, you need to actually go back in time to do those things, and then time can move forward, which is why she wasn't able to do anything on the display system, or at least that's what they theorized there. It's a little complicated, and yeah, it's a little wishy-washy because it's a time travel plot, and time travel plots are very difficult. They're very difficult to do. It's a little difficult to understand. I don't quite understand how all 7 red bursts appeared at the beginning of this season and then they all disappeared except for the one in front of Jet Reno, and then they all started to reappear. I don't know why all 7 appeared initially, and then some of them disappeared, and then they all started methodically appearing again. I don't know how that worked. Maybe we'll get more information on that, or maybe I'm not understanding that. If somebody understands that better, throw that comment down below. Maybe you can explain it to me. But from what I gather is after she did the things that she was supposed to do in the past and then re-arrived back at the battle, then she was able to then understand that the 6th and 7th red burst signal was the one to show how Discovery needs to go through the wormhole, and then the 7th one is letting Spock know, and everybody in the Federation know that knows about the battle at least, that let them know that they made it to the future safely and that they're just hanging out on Terra Elysium. So it makes sense. It makes sense enough, and that's really what it comes down to. Is the time loop thing kind of doesn't make sense, and in other areas it does. Overall, it makes sense enough to get the script ready to go and get the plot moving along and get the action on screen happening and to make for an overall satisfying video. Okay, so the last thing that I think everyone's going to be kind of talking about for the next, until we see, I don't know, the next thing of Star Trek, which is how they tied up the canon stuff at the end of the episode. So essentially what it is everyone who participated in the battle lied to Starfleet Command and said that the control AI attacked the Discovery and the Enterprise, and they were all damaged, and the Discovery had some kind of spore drive malfunction, and it just exploded, killing everybody on board. That's the story that they're telling Starfleet. The intent of this is, number one, to prevent Starfleet from ever trusting an AI again, to show that, listen, this thing killed an entire crew worth of people. Section 31 was this organization that was corrupted or misled by control and just did all this stuff, and it seems to almost hide the fact that everyone was being infested with nanobots and drones and all that stuff. They're just saying Section 31 as a whole did the wrong thing, and they were misled by the control AI, and it led to the destruction of the Discovery. Now, Spock says to the investigator from Starfleet Command that essentially nobody should talk about this ever again, and they already have the rule in place about dealing with temporal events and not, interfering with time travel stuff, which is his approach, which is to basically blacklist everything to do with the 1st and 2nd season of Discovery. Never mention the ship, never mention the spore drive, never mention the events that happened with the control AI in Section 31, never mention any of the crew ever again or the time suit. So everything needs to be deep classified and no one can ever talk about it ever again. And they did this, number one, so that we can have a little bit more lineup with canon, and number two, a little bit more lineup with Spock's character moving forward into the original series with Kirk and everybody, because everyone says, well, why did Spock never mention that he had a sister? Well, he wouldn't want to talk about it based off of this episode and the fact that it's classified, but just based off of his own emotional turmoil with what happened with his sister. He doesn't want to talk about it. So it makes sense. They added that together. And it's weird because when they initially did Michael Burnham's character as Spock's sister, it was like, this is kind of dumb and you're shoehorning her into the Sarek family. Why would you do that? But I think adding Spock to 2nd season really beefed up their connection and solidified her place within the Sarek family and showed off how she impacted him in the future and why he never talks about her. So I think it was really smart for them to bring Spock in this season to kind of solidify that and allow her character to kind of almost stand on her own while also still getting rooted back into the Sarek family. I think that was a smart decision on their part. Now, as far as nobody ever talking about it again, this is a sci-fi show. It's kind of stupid. Of course, someone would probably leak it at some point, but we're just going to have to go with it. So that's what they're saying, is no one talks about anything that happened to do with any of this season 1, season 2 of Discovery, and it's all deep classified, and that's why we've never heard of the Spore Drive or the Discovery or really any of these events before, is because Starfleet just buried it and nobody ever knew about it. And that's what they're going with. Now, do I think that this is a good idea? I think it's fine. And the reason why I think it's fine is my theories for the future of Star Trek. And what I'm going to say here might come across as pure speculation. This isn't rumors. I don't have inside sources. This is all pure speculation. It's what my gut is telling me based off of what we saw from this episode. And that is, I think the Discovery now will be set in the future. And I actually think the 3rd season of Discovery is going to be the future show that so many fans wanted, including myself. We're going to get a Star Trek show focused on the future. It's going to be set so far past Voyager and Nemesis. It's going to be set way in the future with Starfleet still there. Starfleet still alive. We're not going to see the events of the Calypso stuff because they were managed to stop control and take the sphere data into the future. So Starfleet's going to be there. And I think season 3 of Discovery is going to be the crew of the Discovery reintegrating back into Starfleet, getting back into the swing of things, finding out what happened to their loved ones, and then possibly dealing with the fallout of the fact that it was this huge cover-up. I don't know. But I think that's what it's going to be. I think Discovery is going to be permanently in the future. I don't think they're ever going to come back to the TOS timeline. I think they're doing that intentionally so that they don't have to deal with any more of this canon nonsense and damaging any more timelines. I think they're going to keep it in the future. Now, the other piece that I think is going to happen is I do not think that the Section 31 show is going to be its own standalone thing anymore. I think that it's going to be broken down and molded together into one giant TOS show that's going to heavily feature and star Anson Mount and Ethan Peck and Rebecca Romaine and Shazid Latif, who, however you say that, and Marie Wiseman as the Klingon. And I think that they're going to make a TOS show for Pike. That's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to get no more Section 31 standalone. It's going to just be a Pike show with the Section 31 elements added to it. And I think that's why they built the Enterprise set. I think that's what the feeling was that we got at the end. Like, if we hadn't gotten a Season 3 announcement for Discovery at the end of this episode, I would just be speculating that we were going to be getting a Pike spinoff show. Like, that's how, like, they're really nailing home that they have the set, they have these actors, they have these ideas. That's what they're really putting together. So I think that that's what we're going to get moving forward. I think we're going to have the Picard show, which is going to be its own thing. I think that Discovery is going to be set way in the future and do a future Trek show like we all wanted. And I think we're going to have a fun Pike jaunt around the galaxy in the TOS version of that, leading up to his eventual, accident, and then possibly even tying right directly into Kirk taking over as the commander, the captain of the Enterprise in TOS. So I think that's where we're going to be at in the future. And that's why I say their canon timeline tie-up is fine. Like, it works good enough. It ties it all off. It separates the Discovery, and it puts them way into the future, and it's setting us up for a possible spinoff for Pike and a Section 31 show, and leaving the Picard show kind of by itself and letting it do its own thing. The other part that I do need to touch on, which I know a lot of people are going to be still complaining about, is visually that even if we do a TOS show with Pike and with Anson Mount and Ethan G and all those guys and gals, it's still going to visually look a lot different. And I don't think we're ever going to get away from that because, unfortunately, we're not in the 1960s. And if they want to continue to have their TOS cake and eat it too, they're going to just continue to do these TOS-related shows and episodes with updated visuals. You're either going to get over that or you're not. And there's really nothing else to say about that. Either you're going to be able to accept it or you won't be. And, that is a personal decision on you. I'm okay with accepting it and moving forward, especially if the scripts are good and the actors are good and everything about the show is really great. I'm okay with accepting it. They're not just doing it just for nostalgia's sake. I'm okay with it, but that's a personal decision for me. Okay, so I'm going to be doing, probably in a week or two, a full-blown review of the entire season of Discovery, and I'm going to probably watch the entire thing on, without breaks, just go all the way through it, and then talk about things that worked and things that didn't work. But for this episode, as a season finale setting up what I believe to be a spin-off show and the third season of Discovery, I think it did a great job. I think, again, we had the best space battles we've ever seen in Star Trek. I think we had fantastic sequences with acting and script work and things of that nature. I think the camera work was great. I think the editing was great. I think the plot was great. Everything just clicked really, really well together, and I really, really enjoyed the episode. Okay, guys and gals, that wraps up my feelings on this season finale, and I am eager to hear what all of you thought about this episode. Did you think it was really well done? Did you think it was great? Do you think it tied up canon really well? Or do you think it still leaves too much on the table? And do you think that the episode was not so great? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are and why you feel that way. So please throw those comments up down below, and I will catch all of you guys and gals next time. Live long and prosper, my Trekkies!